G'day guys, in this video we're going to go over how well the K2 performs up against the Bambu and the original K1 Max. I ordered this in the pre-order with my own money. It was back in about June and it got delayed. It was supposed to be delivered in October, it got delayed to November, and then now the 19th of December it finally arrived. I'm guessing for the delays they added a filament dryer box. I never ordered this, so that was, I guess, compensation. There was also a build plate in there. I don't know whether it comes with one in the box, but that was included. And then of course the Hyper Series filament that came with it, which they kind of send out with all of their K series. Now with all of that out of the way, let's have a look at the printer itself. Now if you pick one of these things up from a store, the box they come in is pretty large, so it's 600 by 600 by 700 high. So whatever that works out to be in freedom units, I don't know, but yeah, so you might want to take a SUV because the box is quite large. Alright, this is it up on the desk. Usual instruction manuals. What do we got here? More bits and pieces. Bit of filler. Some more bits and pieces. Filament swatches, that's interesting. What looks to be some sort of toolkit. And there's the screen. So that part we're definitely going to want. Looks like screen mounting. Probably a spare nozzle or something. But yeah, we'll keep going. See this tape here? I hate this tape. Creality, stop putting it on your printers. It leaves residue. Okay, that was annoying. So the lid was taped to the side. Okay. So there does appear to be a build plate in here. So obviously the one that they sent me here. It looks to be exactly the same because I've already opened this to make sure it was a build plate. It looks to be the same type of build plate, so they've obviously just sent me a second one as compensation for lost, delayed postage. So now they've got brackets in here for transportation. And of course, in original fashion, I didn't read any instruction manuals on how to pull this out. So we'll do what most people do, and just start pulling things out until something breaks. Okay, now they're out. To give you an idea what I've just done, there was 2 screws there, another 2 there, there was 1 up there, 1 up here, and then there's 2 down there and 2 down there. And then you can pull those out. If you ever want to sell the printer or transport it, keep those. If not, throw them in the bin. Here we go. I'll get my first look at the CFS. It's covered in dust and crap. So it's another 2 rolls of filament. So all up, it's come with 5 rolls of filament. These don't feel like 1 kilo rolls. They're size of 1 kilo, but they don't have the weight. 0.5 kilos. So 3 kilos of filament all up. The 1 full kilo of Hyper, and then 4 of these, which are all 0.5 each. build plate. Take that out. And of course, again, they've used stickers that leave residue. Not sure if you can see it on the corner there, but it's left residue, so that'll have to be cleaned off with isopropyl alcohol. Some may think it's just printer, it's going to get dirty, but this retails for $2,500 in Australia, so yeah, you'd think that they'd spend a little bit more money on stickers. Now again, inside there's going to be 4 screws, which is holding the build plate down. They've got yellow arrows pointing towards them. So I don't know if you can see it here. The camera's going to show it. Kind of just eyeballing it, but as you can see, there's residue from the tape all over the edges of the printer. I had the same thing with my K1. I cleaned it off there for the time being because I need to mount the screen. When you go to install this, there's a little notch here. It's probably hard to see, but there's a little notch at the bottom where there's none at the top. It's in there. That goes to the bottom, so you're going to install this on the front of the printer like that. Now the cable's going to be at the back, so you just need to feed it through. Let's go to the back, and that's how you mount the screen. Okay, now let's have a look at the back of the printer. Very similar to Bambu, it's got a poop chute, so your waste, you'll have to have a waste bucket behind it to catch it. I generally just put an ice cream container like this. This sits behind my Bambu and it catches the poop, comes out the back. They've got a spool holder, so you can put a spool on the back of it, which appears to go something like that. Bolts into these 2 screws here, but why would you if you've got a CFS? Okay, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Now, it uses the same cables that the Bambu AMS uses. I don't know if you can see those. Bambu had an issue with these cables. They stopped working, or people were having issues, and it caused the AMS not to sync with the printer. Mine hasn't done that yet, my Bambu, but I have had issues with these cables where I've had to unplug them and plug them back in, and it's made it work. But some people had complete failure, and no matter what they did, these cables wouldn't work. So obviously Creality's gone and used the exact same cable, so it makes me wonder if we're going to have the same issue, but time will tell. It says on the cables no hot swapping, so obviously you don't want to have the printer plugged in to power when you swap out the cables. And of course we'll plug in there and go up to the CFS, and it's got one of these. So this is very similar to what Bambu's got in the back as well. It basically allows the 4 filaments to come out of one. So that'll go on the back there, it'll bolt there somewhere, or probably there, and then it'll take the 4 filaments and turn it into one. This is usually if you want to have more than one CFS. So think of it as a hub. With Bambu you need to buy a hub extra to connect them all, and I wouldn't be surprised if you have to buy that with Creality. At least they've supplied you with one part of it anyway. The screws for that will be here. So they're the buffer screws. So now this one's going to go up to the CFS. Probably haven't got the camera up high enough, but that'll plug in the back of the CFS. And then this one will plug into the buffer. Okay, that way. Okay, so that's sort of how it connects. Just lift that up a bit. And you take the PTFE tubes. It's fairly simple, the pictures show it. Okay, so that's the back of it. All looks good. And this is that toolkit. So again, they give you a nice little toolkit with it. Oh cool, they give you some Torx bits. Like I haven't got a heap of these. While that's doing its thing, you can almost see that the Bambu X1 carbon here could almost fit the whole printer inside of that. So the size of it is quite large. Alright, let's have a look at the AMS and the CFS and see the differences or the similarities. So obviously this is the Bambu AMS and this is the CFS. Now immediately you'll notice the difference here. Creality has these sticking up and Bambu has them sort of built in, nice and flush. And what that allows for is you can basically stick a spool in and then just poke that in and it'll suck the filament in and do its thing. It's really simple, where Creality's sort of got these little tubes and it's, I mean, you can push it in. So, not really fully sure what the thinking there was, but something I was thinking of changing to is basically just using a little bit of Capricorn tube and then I'm replacing these long ones like that, and that'll bring them down. Now how well that's going to work I don't know. Obviously I'll work that out. I still haven't printed anything yet, but time will tell. That should get me pretty close. I don't think it'll be an issue being like that. And then yeah. So there might be something that you want to experiment with. Something else I noticed, like when you drop the Bambu one, it just feels really premium. This one, like, it just, the lid feels a little bit wobbly, but you know, that's really nothing. It still closes. The locks are on the side, but I never use the locks because, say, like in the Bambu here, if your spool binds up while it's pulling through, it'll pull the spool up and want to lift the lid and potentially break your locks. So I never lock them, and that'll allow, if the spool does get bound up, it can kick the lid open instead of breaking stuff. I would rather the spool fall out and then lose the spool than break the lid or something. So the same will be with this. I won't use the locks. Both of them have the same technology, so they've both got RFID sensors in them. Bambu has them in these fins here on the side. Creality has the same thing. There's fins. And then on their special spools they've got RFID tags. You should be able to see that in there, right there. And then Creality's ones here. Interestingly, Bambu's got them on both sides of the reel. Creality only has it on one side. And of course they both have the same sorts of silica holders, so you can keep them dry. Very similar design. And on the back, Creality has one out, and Bambu's got the one out there, and then the two plugs. They're very similar. I'm not going to say that Creality copied Bambu, but they're very similar. So you can draw your own conclusion on that. But overall, both of them feel pretty premium. Creality at the top here, probably have to move it forward. Creality at the top here seems to have something that runs along the tops of the spools. I'm guessing just to keep them in place. Bambu doesn't have nothing like that. Whether that aids in keeping the spool straight, I don't know. But when you put their spools in, it definitely does sit on the top. So I guess that could stop the spool moving side to side or anything like that. Kind of just keep it straight. And again, whether that, you know, really makes a difference, I don't know. I haven't had a problem with the spools in my Bambu going sideways. So that's the basically difference between the AMS and the CFS. The CFS is larger, considerably larger. So you see it there. But everything about the K2 is larger. So what's a little bit of size? I guess if you've got 4 of these, you need more space. Where 4 of these is more compact. So that's one advantage to having it smaller. And the Creality one, because it's not plugged in, you can't see it, but it does have a LCD screen here, which just gives you like temperature and humidity information on the front, where Bambu doesn't have that. But really, you don't need it. So that's the two anyway. Okay, these are the backs of the printers. So they're pretty much the same. You know, you got your poop chute here and your poop chute up here. So you'll need a bucket or something back here to catch that. And then it's the same. You've got your buffer here, and then your cabling for your CFS AMS, same thing here. Creality has 4 inputs here, so this is all ready to basically take up the 4 different CFS modules. So you don't need to worry about that, but obviously you will need to buy some sort of hub or something that'll allow the printer to plug 4 of them in at once. And obviously that'll just go, you know, it'll all go to a hub, the cabling, but you can connect all of the CFSs to this. And then with the Bambu, if you like, you can 3D print this. That's all this is here. This is just 3D printed, so if I do want to use a spool, I can feed it in through here. And you can probably do the same with the Creality one, with this up here, maybe bolt it on there or something like that, and just allow you to maybe feed the spool in. And these are the fronts of the printers. So they have done a lot better with this hinge design over the K1. The K1's hinge was fairly flimsy, so you wanted to be careful with the door. And yeah, this is much better, this design. So they've improved on that. And of course Bambu's very similar to the K1. And yeah, so there's not too much difference in them. Overall, both the printers are fairly comparable when it comes to quality. Of course, Bambu, if you haven't owned a Bambu, you'll understand why the Bambus do seem to be a lot better in quality. They just have refinements in them, like even things like you'll see here on the Creality, they've put joins here where Bambu doesn't. They've put a full plate there, and it's just the attention to detail that makes these look and sort of feel nicer. But really, it's a 3D printer, and what it looks like on the outside is not the important part to you. How it operates is what's the most important part. And I can tell you that with the Bambu, if you want to use this printer fully, you need cloud connectivity. If your internet goes down, you can't print from your computer to the printer. You have to use an SD card. And that is annoying because my internet goes down, so I've experienced this. And there was a small issue with it when I first had it, where it would keep dropping off my Wi-Fi network, and I would have to keep repairing it. And the only way to repair it back to my account was to remove it, factory reset the printer, and then repair it to my account. And that's the only way it would happen, and it was extremely annoying, and it would happen completely randomly. But that seems to have stopped now, so whatever was causing that, they seem to have fixed. The Creality K2 doesn't require cloud connectivity, so you can always print to this just like all of their other printers. The web interface is fluid, so I'll show you that when I'm looking at the software later, but by default it has fluid running as the web UI, and it does again have root access, so you can enable root and modify things yourself. So like the K1, you can root it, but of course that's probably going to, play with your warranty, as they say, when you're going through the settings. But it does have all of that, and Creality Print 5.1 is much better, so you'll probably find that you may not even use the web UI, you'll just straight up use the Creality Print 5.1. And of course, while I'm here, I'll just run a measurement so you know the height of the printer, because I've had a shelf above where this is going to sit and the CFS can't be opened. So when you're looking at getting one of these and you want to know the actual sizes, you're basically looking at about 1 metre high and then 520 by say 520, that's roughly slightly larger. So 520 by 520 by 1000 or 1 metre high. But you need to also take into account that you're going to open your CFS. So we'll say 1200. So if you want complete clearance, you're looking at 1200 from the ground, from the bottom of the table to the top of the CFS open, and then 520 by 520, and that'll give you an idea on the size of it. And okay, to give you an idea on the build plate sizes, like the differences, that's the K1, so yeah, that much bigger. You pull it into the corner, it's basically like that, and then that's the Bambu. So really, you're kind of only printing there with the Bambu, so that's the Bambu. Okay, now we're past the boring part of the video, where everyone's going to skip past. All three printers are set up to print. The filaments are loaded. All three are going to have PLA silk in them, and I'm going to print a articulated axolotl on all three, and then we'll come back and then we'll check the articulation of them, and the print quality, stuff like that, the time and all the rest of it. But so far, first impressions on the Creality K2 is it's very, very much like the X1 Carbon. So yes, so far I'm rather surprised, but the more important part is how it prints, how fast it prints, and the quality it prints at. That's where, that's the only part we really care about. All the rest is just, pretty perks, so it can sit on a shelf and please people. Alright, let's have a quick look at the software here. So we've got Bambu Studio and Creality Print. So, of course, Bambu Studio, if you've ever used it, you know what it is. It's fairly streamlined, simple, whatever you want to call it. It's not a bad slicer, I'll give it that. The only downfall is that everything uploads to the cloud as it prints, so yeah, whatever. And then the Creality Print. So this one's not too bad as well. The original Creality slicer, I think, was based on Cura or something years ago, and it was a steaming pile of garbage. This is actually not too bad. They've come a long way with this. I'm not really sure what they base this on. I'm sure other people know, but I'm not going to look into it. It is what it is. It's very similar to Bambu in functionality. So you can come up here and you can sync your filament, where in Bambu you'd be syncing your filament here. In Creality you'd be syncing your filament up here, of course. And what that does is that when you put the filament into the CFS or the AMS and you set it up there, it'll pull the information from that into the slicer, so it knows what filaments you've loaded, or if you've got ones loaded with RFID on them, again it'll tell the slicer what's loaded. And then you've got devices. So With the Creality print, these are the two printers running, so I've already sent the files to the printers and they're currently printing, and then the same with Bambu. So Bambu's a little bit different here, but you get the same sort of information. You can switch on the camera and watch it print. So for like Bambu, you just click there and then you can see it currently printing. And then Creality's slightly different. You've got the two printers, so you have to click on details and then you'll see it printing. So it's very similar. You can list multiple printers. It's a little bit buggy still. They've got work to do, so obviously they're going to improve it. And again, you'll see the AMS information here. So we'll go back to the plates. This is the object I'm printing. This is the first thing. This print usually takes about 20 hours, 22 hours or something like that. This took around about 20 hours, I would say. In my old Creality CRX and Ender 3 printers, the old bed slingers. So it was it took a while, 20 hours. On these printers, it takes, so this is the Bambu, this says it's going to take around about 4 hours 31. Obviously that's not going to be exact, but it'll be approximately 4 hours. I've printed this before on this printer and it does take about 4 hours. And then on the Creality print where I've sliced it, Creality says it's going to take roughly about 3 hours 56. So I'm not going to know fully until both have printed, but this is the K2 Plus, so still about 4 hours. So roughly both printers are going to print it at roughly the same speed or time frame. So we'll see after they've printed, of course. But yeah, as you can see, from 20 hours to 4 hours anyway, that's a huge improvement. And that's what makes these Core XY printers worth it, really. So if you do have an old Ender or, CRX or whatever, I used to rock like many of them. I think I had 6 of them. And the way I would build things is I would run 6 printers and print the same thing to, speed up production. But now you can have 3 of these fast printers and just print it on the fly, and it's so much quicker and so much easier. I don't need to maintain like 6 printers. And a lot of the times these days, I just print things as they get ordered. So some of my prints that used to take almost 16 hours, I can punch them out in about 3.5 hours. So when I get an order, I can print it on the fly. I don't need to print excess stock. So that's really good. So that's what these printers are really good for anyway. So we'll move on anyway. So this is the K1 Max Web UI. This is really crap, to be quite honest. It really is. It's basic and all of that, and a lot of us just routed the printers and put on mainsail or fluid. My preference is mainsail, but whichever one is far better than this. And as you can see, my bed's completely out of whack again. And this happens with the Crealities. The beds just go out of whack. It's just something you deal with. But with the K2 Plus, they have fluid installed by default. So they got rid of their old Creality web UI, and now they're just using fluid. So, and I think this is a good choice. It's not mainsail, my favourite, but fluid is better than what they've got, and this gives you much more control over the printer, and you can really tweak stuff. And honestly, you don't need to route the printer now to do some of this stuff. So you have the ability to, screw around with the configuration and stuff without needing to technically void your warranty or, because they don't like you rooting the system. Even though you can do it, you don't need to. So anyway, I think this is a really wise choice of Creality to add this and keep it like this. and all I can say is props to them, because someone that's had printers for many years, having something like this is far better than closing it all off and proprietary and all of that type of stuff with like you get with the Bambus. And I think Creality's done good with the slicer. These models are all being printed with the same settings across both Bambu and the K1 and the K2 Plus. So all three printers will be printing the exact same model with the exact same settings. And these settings aren't something that I've tweaked. The only settings I've really changed is I've gone into support, selected tree auto, and then turned off brims because I don't need them. And the same will be here. You go in here and it'll be tree auto and turned off the brims. The rest is all left to default. I haven't tweaked any of the walls, nothing. And the idea behind that is that most people that are going to buy a printer are not going to know how to, screw around with a lot of this stuff. I'm coming at it from the point of view of someone that's getting into one of these new, and they're not fully, technical with all of this. So I wanted to leave the slicers pretty much as default as I could get them, with simply putting stuff on that I need, like support, and then I don't need the brim. But apart from that, everything else is stock standard. So this is the test between these three is also slicer versus slicer. And of course, all the printers are updated, latest firmwares and the latest slicers, of course, because it would be unfair to test them against each other if one was out of date or something like that. Alright, let's have a look at some of the print quality. I've pretty much done the same prints on all three printers using the same slicer settings, or at least as close to the same slicer settings between Bambu and Creality print. So we'll start off with the Bambu one anyway. So I printed articulated lizards. In my opinion, this is a pretty good torture test for a printer because these are print in place. Obviously the head gets printed separately, but the rest of it's print in place. And the articulation's good. The quality's good for the Bambu, so no issues with that. You got the K2 here, same thing. Articulation's good. The quality's exactly the same as the Bambu. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And then I've got the K1. So the K1's exactly the same, articulation's good, and the quality's the same. So when you look at these three to the eye, they're exactly the same. I can't really fault them. The only main part here would be is that the Bambu took the longest. It took 4 hours and 31 minutes to print this entire model. The K2 was the fastest, so the K2 printed this in 3 hours and 48 minutes. So that was pretty quick for the K2. And then of course the K1 took 4 hours and 10 minutes. So it's not a huge time difference, but the K2 basically beat the Bambu by about 40 minutes. But that can be because when you're using two different slicers and there's two different sets of supports, the Bambu slicer may have put more supports in or less supports in, which could have taken extra time. So obviously the two different slicers are not going to do the exact same supports. So really in the grand scale of things, in my opinion, they're very, very similar. Next up are things that I usually print, and I've sold them and whatnot. So these are parts that I actually do care about. I need the quality to be good. And yeah, so I printed one on the K1, the K2 and the Bambu. And this time the K1 was the slowest. So the K1 took 4 hours and 6 minutes, roughly. And then the Bambu took 3 hours and 47 minutes. And the K2 was the quickest at 3 hours. So again, The K2 was about 40 minutes quicker than the Bambu. So that's two different complete prints. This is PETG, and again, these have supports in them when they're printed, so the Bambu could have taken longer because it did different supports. The quality between the two is exactly the same. Honestly, there's not too much difference. I think my bed might need a little bit of adjusting on the K2, because I do see a little bit of pitting there where the Bambu doesn't have it in the same spot. Obviously you're not going to be able to see it on camera, but I can see it. There's a little bit of pitting here, which says to me that when it printed, if the bed would have been offset one side and the bed leveling did keep up, it just means that it's probably a little bit not pushing on the layer. It's not perfectly even. This is the same problem I had with my K1, and this is why I had to level it. And the K1, that's fairly uniform. Yeah. And that being said, I haven't done any modifications to the K2, any leveling. This is literally out of the box. So all three of them, extremely good. I'm happy with all three. So I can't fault them. Now obviously the K1 can't do multicolour prints, so I pretty much leave the K1 behind here. Now these are other parts that I like to print. Something that I look into is customization. So you print people's names on this for their craft machines and that. And both printers here, as you can see, probably hard to see, but both printers bleed the black, so it's stringing. So the Bambu, you can clearly see there's a lot of stringing here. And what all this is that the filament hasn't retracted properly, so as it's pulling around the bed to change the layer, it's left a little bit of black, so you can really see it. And the K2 has done the exact same thing, and that's what happens when you print these face down on the bed. And that's why I don't print them like this. Normally they're printed like this. The problem is that it takes 5 hours to do all of the layer changes, roughly, to print these. So this is mainly just a test between the two to see the exact same similarities between stringing. But overall, the quality there is roughly the same for printing them face down anyway. So there's not too much difference. Now I printed two little blocks just with some layer changes, and I wanted to see if there was any bleeding in the layers. Both the Bambu and the K2 seem to be fairly uniform. They kind of purge the filament fine, but it's always going to be hard to see. So I printed a couple of things that are face down, which are these. So this is where I found an issue with the K2. So now when I print this, you'll see the logo. You might want to print something like this if you're shining light through it, sort of a sign logo or whatever. And the Bambu's handled the filament changes really nicely. You don't see any black bleeding into the white, but on here it may be hard to see, but in this top corner here, the purge of the filament hasn't quite worked good enough. So you probably see the discoloration, and all this means is that when the printer is purging the filament after it's changed colour, it's not doing it long enough. So this can be fixed in software, obviously with a firmware update. They need to purge the filament more, and that's what's good here, going from white to black, because you get a good contrast. So the K2 has failed here, in my opinion, because of the contrast. You don't want that in your prints, obviously. You want sharp colours. And the Bambu, perfect. So I'll give the Bambu, props for that. They've done well. And obviously this is the K1 on the filament change, because they don't do the filament change. So But the idea here is that this is the type of effect you want. You want something nice, clean, sharp. And the way that this has been achieved is this is UV printed. So I'll do another video on how I go about UV printing onto objects, and the same's happened here with the arms. And all this is you print it out just white, and then you use a direct-to-object printer which will print onto this, and that's UV, so that's not going to come off. So that's kind of the effect I go for, and this is the setup that I do. I don't worry about trying to print multiple colours. That was just a test. This is my preferred way of going about customization on these types of tools, because you can get it perfect. You can use any colour under the sun. You're not restricted to 4 or 16 colours, and you don't have to worry about filament changes and all of that. And okay, just a couple of final models that I've printed. These little socket men. And the main reason for it is just to print something circular. And this one here. So the K2 and the Bambu I've printed. I haven't worried about the K1 because this is really just a comparison for the Bambu and the K2. And again, the Bambu was slower. So the Bambu took 3 hours and 36 minutes to print this. The K2 took 2 hours and 45 minutes. So roughly again, the K2 was roughly 40 something minutes faster. So Creality's produced a printer that's faster than Bambu, possibly, in my tests anyway. Consistently it has been faster on literally every print, and initially I thought it might have been due to supports, but these were printed out without any supports. So make of that what you will. And the slicer settings again are the same. The seam was shifted to the back, and they're pretty much the same. The quality's roughly the same, but on these you can actually see that the Bambu has a fair bit of ringing. So I don't know if it's kind of hard to see that, where the K2 doesn't have that same ringing. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera, but to the naked eye you can really see it. You can see it around the back, which is where the seam is. Kind of expect a bit to be there. The K2 has a little bit there, but on the front of the model, the K2 doesn't have it. So there needs to be some fine tuning or something with the Bambu. So overall the quality of the K2 here is better because there's ringing in. It's not just around the actual letters, it's around the whole model, all the way up and down. So yeah, I kind of didn't expect that. So all up there, they're pretty much good, but yeah, I'd have to say the K2 has won out here, on this model anyway. And then just a couple of little ones. And you can see the slight ringing again. So it's not just on the large model, you can see it on this smaller one. And it's not there. A couple of others, just small things I printed while I was messing around was, I think it's their 14-minute benchy that was on the machine. And that came out okay, just out of some clear PLA. So that was pretty cool. And then on the K2 only, I just was messing around with mixing filaments. So this is black PETG inside of clear PLA, and that came out good as well. And the idea there is you just print it, like that, face down, and then you can lift it up. And if you wanted to, you can make a light box shine through this, and you still got nice finish on the front. But it handled it well. Bambu does this exactly the same, so that's mixed filaments, so they kind of work. So overall, the print quality across the board, it's as good as each other. Alright, we'll have a bit of a talk about my thoughts on the conversion kit for the K1 Max. If you've got a K1 Max, all of this will look very familiar. And the only issues I have with the actual conversion kit will be is you don't have a poop chute, you need a wipe tower and a place to basically get rid of the filament. As you change filament, you need to purge it through the nozzle so you don't get old colour mixing with the new colour, and that's where this comes in. K1 Max doesn't have a provision for this, so I'm not quite sure what the conversion kit will come with. Time will tell, I guess. So we don't have that. That's the major part that I see as a problem, because that's a physical limitation. The wiring can be connected to the board, so running wiring up could just mean you're going to take the bottom of the printer off and run a cable up. That probably be handled relatively easy. And the other issue is when you bend over this corner, the filament likes to bind up as it comes over, so something may need to be done about here, because on all three of my K1s they all bind up here, and that may need to be addressed. But apart from that, I think they can do the conversion kit, but time's going to tell. Alright, we get to the end of the video now, and if you've made it this far without leaving a bad comment or, unsubscribing, apologise for the audio throughout the entire video. That thing there wasn't communicating with that thing there that's plugged into that thing there, and that's a lesson learnt for me. So the audio's just been coming from the camera itself, which sucks, so I apologise for that. As for the printer, I believe the K2 is a really good printer. My experience with it in the 5 days I've had it has been very positive. I've had little issue with it. It's worked very well. As much as my X1 Carbon, I've had a very good experience with that. I've printed a lot of stuff on this, so I'm not knocking the Bambu. It's a good setup. The only thing I don't like about it is the whole sign-in account cloud sort of thing. With this, I haven't signed into any accounts or anything like that. It's literally just been printing from my inside computer to out here because we're in my shed. So when you compare these two, I believe that this is a very good setup. It's fast, the quality's good, and I really can't fault it against the X1 Carbon. And totally up to you what you want to buy, but if I was to go out and buy another printer today, I would be buying this, hands down. Doesn't matter what anyone wants to say, I'd buy this. Great printer, but this is better. Now, as for my K1 Max, still a great little printer, but it just doesn't have this capabilities. Whether they're going to bring a retrofit kit to this, I honestly cannot tell you. But like I've mentioned before in the video, there's just a few things that kind of concern me, like where you're going to expel the filament. Yeah, time will tell, of course. But for now, I think that this printer, they've done really well. Okay, I hope this video has helped answer some of the questions you may have had about the K2 and whether it compares to the X1 Carbon, how good it goes, the speeds, the quality, stuff like that. Done my best to kind of make a comparison for things. Now, I'll have a couple of videos soon coming out just showing how I've upgraded the tubing to Capricorn tubing for the CFS and the machine. And then I'll also look into adding the webcam to Fluid because it doesn't currently support it, so I'll have to enable root on the machine to get into it. For me, I run an app I've made on my Android phone which monitors my printers, and currently the camera doesn't work. That's annoying to me because I want to be able to occasionally check in on the printer and make sure I'm not getting spaghetti. So at the moment, Fluid doesn't support the camera. So there's a little bit of work to be done, but overall I think it's a great printer, and if you buy one and you get the same results, good stuff.